Hello and welcome to the Ascendant Art Podcast, where we are on a search for art that is ascending above the mainstream. We've got our usual co-hosts, Vinny with Little Chad and Joey from Keeper's Karen at Slender Dad. Good night, good evening, guys. And we also have a special guest who is currently staying up very late, and I'm sure is very caffeinated to be able to spend the time with us. And that is Yakov Mervin with the.
Merkin.
Sorry. Hey, it's a tradition. We mess something up every introduction. So there we go.
Fine.
So yes, Yakov Merkin with with Light into Another World. So I was starting to look up a little bit about it. I know, of course, you've got the Kickstarter and you've got apparently a number of issues out now. So yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
It's basically a light novel series. So that's, essentially just short novels with some illustrations inside. The first 5 volumes had 7 each. These 5 volumes are going to have at least 5 each, and then up to 7 if we hit stretch goals like I did last time. And it's for anybody who's familiar with anime genres or light novel genres. It's an isekai story, which is basically portal fantasy, or someone from our world ends up on a fantasy world and proceeds to get involved in things going on over there. So that's the basic lowdown of what it is, and obviously it's a little more than that because I try and do something a little bit different than the main and what you see in the generic stuff in the genre. Like a slightly different kind of main character and just a different approach to things because I'm not trying to just copy what Japan is doing. I'm trying to do something in the same style, but also make it mine because that's how I think it usually comes out better.
I was going to say, in that case, of course, thanks to the wonderful efforts of Joey and Vinny with the weave outs and with some other stuff, I've learned a little bit more about the whole isekai genre. But tell us real quick. So, of course, one, just what is isekai, and then second, what is it that you kind of like took with that form and made it different? I'm assuming that there's no truck-kun, I think is the meme for that.
No. Yeah, not in this. I decided to go the portal route versus the reincarnation route. So,
there you go.
But yeah, basically, isekai is basically portal fantasy by another name. I think in Japanese, I think it means like literally another world is what isekai actually means. And I mean, obviously, it's much older than the recent popular anime or light novels. Like it goes. I mean, technically, Wizard of Oz is technically an isekai, depending on how you view that movie, or Alice in Wonderland, or a famous, or the more famous one is a Connecticut Yankee, King Arthur's Court, which was made into a movie also at some point. So any story that involves someone from our world going to another world, not often a fantasy world, but I don't think it's required to be a fantasy world. And obviously, there's a lot of memes around where you kind of stretch the definition of what an isekai is to kind of. You could technically put almost any story into that if you want to say like somebody leaving their hometown counts, but I don't think that counts. But
I was going to say because then that would just be every single instance of the hero's journey.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's more of a meme than an actual definition of what it is. I mean, I think the main definition is that somebody from Earth ends up on another world, and usually there's no way back, at least not right away. Although there are some, they do go back and forth, and there are some, I guess that we called reverse isekai, where somebody from like a fantasy world ends up on modern day Earth, and so there are a few. There are fewer of those, though.
I was gonna say, now remind me, guys, isn't that Devil is a part timer? Is the concept there?
That is Devil is a part timer.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Where Lucifer gets a job at what was the name of the restaurant?
Nick Ronald's.
Nick Ronald's.
Yep. And they are opposite of Santucky Fried Chicken.
I was going to say. Yep. That is absolutely the case. What's funny is I'm looking up right now the copyright on whether or not you can use Mick in a name at all because
parody, my friend, parody. You're safe.
Yes. Good, because when we get to talking about a certain was it anarcho-capitalist that has gotten famous recently, we'll do that during the free play. but that's the concept of the McNuke. It's like, can you sell McNukes in a in a app world? But anyway, but yeah, so the kind of foundational thing there, of course, is right. Isekai is going into another world. I like the illustration of Wizard of Oz counts as one of those. So it sounds like, of course, like there's some current memes now that that genre has gotten popular again, and you're looking to maybe kind of like go in your own particular direction about it. So yeah, tell us a little bit more now about the series and like what you're doing there.
Yeah, I want to do something different, but also not fall into the trap of either making a generic isekai or making a parody / subversion of it, because there are a lot of those now too, to the point where they're also kind of getting a little bit played out. So I wanted to do something that kind of embrace what makes the genre fun in the first place, like the adventure stuff essentially, but with a slightly different approach, mainly with a different kind of main character who is not a blank slate like a lot of main characters in these kind of stories are, and someone who has like a much more formed identity and also is much more proactive with what he wants to do and what he does in the story. And also I don't like the overpowered main character trope, because it kind of robs most of the tension, if not all of the tension, from the shows or the other sort of the books that they're in. And so I wanted to give him some kind of magical ability, but one that requires to be clever about using it. And also, of course, not being overpowered means that his party, for lack of a better term, is much more important in the story and the fights they get into, because everybody's different skills and different abilities come into play at one point or another to save the day. And it feels like a much more fun way to write, the action scenes that way, because, it's not just, a one hit, like a very easy victory every time. And it's not the main character doing everything with the side characters falling to the wayside, because what's the point of them if they don't need to do anything?
I was going to say that's actually that's a very core writing concept, because I am struggling a little bit with like comic script writing myself, and that is, of course, one of the important things on your checklist is, did everyone do something meaningful while they were on stage?
Yeah,
I mean, probably the easiest way to do it would be to ask yourself, okay, if this character wasn't in the story, would everyone else be dead? There should be a situation where they were needed to prevent dead.
Yes. And same is true even issue to issue, right? But yeah, so in that case, when you mention about, of course, like main character, different characters, like who is the main character?
The main character, his name is Uriel. He's an IDF soldier, though born in America, and someone who moved to Israel and then joined the army. It's kind of, it's a little bit taking from my own experience, because I did that myself, but at an older age than he did, and personality-wise, are pretty different. But I also wanted him to be a native English speaker, just because it would make the story work better in that sense. So that's part of the reason why I did it. And also I want him to know about guns. Israelis don't know much about guns beyond what they learn in the army. And for plot reasons, I wanted him to know a fair bit about guns and how to make them. So he had to be American for that.
Yeah, and tell us about his world. Like, okay, so what world does he get dropped into?
The world itself, I didn't try and do anything too fancy. It's it's fantasy, like anime style fantasy. Nothing too crazy in terms of the stuff that goes on there. I didn't want to, because I wanted to try and keep it a little bit simple. To make it like familiar to people who are fans of the genre, while also doing my own thing in it. So I didn't want to try and reinvent the wheel in terms of the world. So there's a fantasy world with a few different species. Like you have the anime staples of there's humans, there's elves, there's demi-humans, like part animal, part person, and a couple other ones.
Okay, now I'm curious what hybrid creatures we've got here.
Well, they're all on the covers. Have pretty much everybody on it at some point or another. So we have, in the main group, there's a cat girl, there's a moth girl, there's a snake girl, there's another human, and it's an elf, and then we also have a guy from a species I called the Flameborn, who's kind of like he's like my avatar is that character. It was kind of like sort of made of stone and with fire, like kind of constantly
I
burning
see.
around him.
And I'm taking a look at it now. So yeah, so in the chat, I went ahead and linked and starred the was that the header photo from your profile there, and in a minute we'll do the Kickstarter because that gives you an idea really quickly.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed non-human characters more than human characters in most fiction that I've played or watched or read over the years. So I always enjoy having a lot of non-human characters. Like my first book series, which was more like a Star Wars style sci-fi, there were no humans at all in the entire series. I just made up all different aliens for every character essentially. So when I was doing this, even though I decided for the way the story was going to work for it to be a human main character, I also wanted almost the entire rest of the main team to be non-human because it's just more fun for me and it makes the art more interesting to draw and to look at. So I like having the diversity that I like is alien characters essentially.
Yep. And let's see. I'm also going to flip over and link to the site because I'm looking at your site now and we've got tons of great stuff here. And for some reason, to me, like the moth in particular came out really well on the artwork.
Yeah, well, a couple of my readers have already declared her best girl, so she's a pretty popular character apparently.
If you're gonna make an isekai, you've got to have a best girl. I mean,
well, I don't choose one. That's the fans choose one. The author doesn't choose because they're all equal. They're all
I think Vinny, it's more a rule of like if you are gonna write a story, period, there needs to be a best girl somewhere.
Well, I mean, you've got to have that top tier waifu game competition if you're really gonna go. I mean, you got to have a Rem and an Amelia. You got to have. I mean, I won't get into the waifu debate is a whole other thing, but
yes. Well, then you have some stories where you have multiple candidates for best girl. I mean, there are shows with entirely female casts where you could have an entire class worth of best girls.
I mean, It appears as though the elf is wearing bikini armor, which kind of automatically makes her best girl.
See, everybody gets their own favorite. That's why I want to have a variety.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly. Trying to make something for everyone, because when we had Chrisova on here, I remember he had a very different opinion of elves.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of that discourse on my mutuals on Twitter.
Yep. I was going to say and speaking of that, when it comes to publishing, are you entirely self-published, or did you or do you work with any guys?
No, it's all on my own. I mean, I did try going the traditional route for a couple of years. It was taking too long, so I decided, screw it, I'll do it myself, and I never looked back since. So it's all, I mean, obviously I'm hiring somebody for the art and stuff like that and for the formatting, but otherwise, it's all me essentially in terms of managing it all. And once you start doing it yourself, you realize how much actually has to go into getting a book, made. It's not so simple as just writing one. So it's, a lot to manage sometimes, but worth it in the end.
Joey here, of course, is is another book writer with his Keeper's Cairn series, and I know, I'm starting to learn that on the comic side of it, because you're right, it's not just it's not just writing it, and it's even not just writing it and getting it drawn, but you're right, you're creating you're doing a whole commercial project. That's what you're doing. Yeah,
and I'm actually working on a manga project myself now. That's still in the relatively early stages. I mean, I wouldn't expect to kickstart that until sometime next year. But that also, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I already got, I don't know how many, it was I think 10 character concept arts and a bunch of spaceship art made for that, because that was all needed ahead of time, so that the artist, has the characters and the ships are going to be appearing a lot. So, it'll make the actual drawing of the sequential art much easier having that in advance. So it was even in comics, even more to manage because there's just more art involved, and the more art that's involved, the more moving parts that are involved, and the more complex it is, and the more it costs.
Yep.
Well, sci-fi in general just is there's so much to keep track of. I generally like to go with the medieval fantasy kind of setting. but I have a sci-fi setting like way off in the back of my projects list. But it's just like, I got to develop all this technology, and then I got to figure out how the technology works, and then I got to think about how the technology would actually be applied. And then I have to think about who has the technology, how far-reaching is the technology. We're talking galaxy spanning at this point. It just gets really complicated. It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, that's why my first book series, in each book in that was at least twice as long as any volume in this series. Part of the reason why.
It's because you're trying to make sense. It's like, well, if you had this, what would you do with it? Which for sci-fi, that's part of the fun of sci-fi is like, hey, if we remove this limitation, what could we do? But then you have to stop and it's like, wait, what would I do?
Well, and then you got to think like a hacker too. You got to be like, okay, what would the good guys use it for? How would the bad guys use it? Like, because it could be very different situations.
Yeah, or if this group takes one action, how do these other groups, other civilizations respond to that, and how does that impact the state of affairs going forward? So yeah, there's a lot.
And I mean, unless you're doing like Star Wars, the new trilogy, the whole rest of the galaxy isn't just going to ignore it if somebody blows up 6 planets. So.
That's right. They're not going to take that land down, 1, and then 2, when they decided, hey, let's just break the world building rules and ram one ship into another ship using the hyperdrive. It's like, well, hey, we just invented the next generation of nuclear missiles because now everyone can just shoot shit at each other.
That move is 1 in a million, but then in the climax of the what is it, episode 9, apparently you see like 3 or 4 ships pulling holdo maneuvers successfully during that final battle.
Or I didn't even watch it. I didn't know they did that again.
I never watched it, but I've seen enough commentary and heard people talking about it, and I looked it up. They did.
I was going to say it's one of those cases of I know 7 and 8. It was because the place I was working at the time, my director was a big Star Wars fan, so like he just took us for those and he took us out to lunch for free. So it's like whatever. But then after 8, like I just remember we walked out of the theater. There's kind of this collective like, what the hell did we just watch?
Yeah, that was the first Star Wars movie that I ever saw that I was actively checking my watch during the movie to see when it was going to be over.
I know.
They were just dragging.
And of course, we don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because we've done that a couple times before. Because
it's kind of.
But you're like, even from the beginning, it's just like, am I watching Star Wars or am I like watching a bad take on Spaceballs here?
Spaceballs was funny.
Yeah,
that's the difference. Spaceballs is funny.
Yeah, it helped for me that that was going on. I was writing my own, space opera, so it was easier for me to just cut off Star Wars essentially and just focus on writing my stuff because I had more fun with that.
Yeah, and it's like for Star Wars, I'm going to use the analogy of watching a kid fall off the swing set and get hurt. It's hilarious until it's my kid. Then I feel really sad about it.
I was going to say, I was thinking of it more of like when the kid had so much promise when he was 10 and then he's like 14 and finds Tumblr.
There's that. There's that.
That's what the sequel trilogy is to me. But all right. Anyway, so yeah, getting back on here. But So of course, it's fun talking about the different genres. But yeah, since we're on this sci-fi thing, so it sounds like you've written a couple series now, and I see for the Kickstarter course you're doing issues book 6 through 10. So it seems like you've been at this a while. Just tell us, like, man, how is that going? Like, have you like gotten your reader base? What's the fan interaction like? Just kind of tell me about that part of the experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very good so far. I mean, it's definitely a much easier series to market than my previous series was. I don't know if that's just because anime is popular now, especially fantasy setting anime, or if trying to market to Star Wars fans was a bad idea, which I think it was, because too many Star Wars fans, even if they don't like the new Star Wars content, they're not going to be interested in an alternative to Star Wars because they're fixated on the big brand. So it was kind of hard to pull people away from that. Whereas I feel like people who are fans of anime and light novels are much more open to anything new in the style that they like.
Oh no, dude, you're good at this point. So the whole sci-fi thing, the whole Star Wars, they have pushed away enough of their customer base that those people are just looking for someone to snatch them up at this point.
But at the same time, so because I think I kind of know what you're coming from on one thing about though, which is it's kind of like how for a long time, Lord of the Rings kind of defined the whole fantasy realm, like what all the rules are, and I feel like. And what's funny is it's probably the rise of like these recent isekais and such that that we're starting to get to a point that like there could be some new rules or some new experiments that are forming, and in that sense, also kind of like looking forward to seeing like how that plays out with your books. But yeah, that might also be the case too with Star Wars. Is that when people think space opera, right? Like it's kind of like Star Wars has set a lot of the rules, and everything is still thought of in terms of a derivation of the original Star Wars, and we're not quite like. Does it feel like we're like people are not quite at that point of like being willing to take on different thoughts, or what do you think it is there?
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed to me that people, grew up with Star Wars and like Star Wars, and they want Star Wars to come back to what it was, even though they know it won't. But at the same time, they're more interested in I guess mourning Star Wars than finding something else to replace it with. And so that's why, I mean, maybe it's changed in the last couple of years because I finished that series. The last book came out, I mean, I guess about 2 years ago now almost already. I don't know where the time went. But I guess it might have changed a bit since that series finished, but I know it was a little bit of a challenge. I mean, I did okay, but it was definitely more of a challenge to try and find people who were fans of the genre for that than it has been for this series. So...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did have a few like smaller Kickstarters and Indiegogos that were did well enough for that series, and I've sold a decent amount of books of that. But I mean, when I go to conventions now, I mean, I've gone to a couple conventions here in Israel, and like 80%, if not more, of the books that I've sold of these, it's only a small sample size, of course, but I've sold the vast majority of what I've sold has been Light into Another World, whether that's because of them being shorter books or having the illustrations, or if it's just people like the genre more. I don't know, but that's that definitely seems easier to sell this series than the previous one. Even though I still love that series, I still plan to go write more in that universe eventually. But for now, I want to do something different, playing with shorter books, more books in the series, and just a little bit easier to market. And so far, thankfully, it's working.
Yep. And what's interesting, so we got Fiona Wolf here too. Are to keep you off Dead IP lands. It took them destroying Superman to make me leave the Dead 2 comics. That's a great thing. Instead of the big two, it's now the other way around.
Well, it is nice to in the independent space seems to be where the energy is, where you've got in this case we're taking inspiration from anime style isekai stories and then making it different and unique for a different audience. And I think there's a lot of merit to that, especially because if you look at one of the more popular isekais that's come out in the last couple of years, even in Japan, which is Rising of the Shield Hero, that's actually using a Chinese kind of mythological story template rather than a Japanese one as its basis. So isekai is I think uniquely positioned format to let creators kind of have a lot of fun in different spaces.
Or at least it should be. A lot of the time, a lot of people go for the lowest common denominator, and then you don't get that. I guess that diverse stories in terms of what you're telling that you can with the genre, because it's easier to just go for what is popular now, what is obviously selling. And so that's why you get so much that kind of falls into the same tropes, the same patterns all over and over again. So that's with any genre that's popular, it's going to have the same kind of thing going on.
Right, kind of like you get a couple of kind of great works that define a lot of the space and the main tropes, and then you get a whole bunch of derivations until you get that next derivation. Yep. And then of course also we got lots of great activity going on in the chat here, and they pointed out, and I'm curious if you've been following any other creators. Of course, I know the whole thing with Rippaverse has been ripping up Twitter right now.
Yeah, I haven't been following that very super closely, but I've been aware of what that means. He's doing ridiculously well.
I mean, dude asked for $100,000, and I think he's pushing $3 million at this point. So
Yeah,
he's got support.
Yeah.
See, as of this moment, it's at 2.68 million.
Yeah, it's fun because I remember I first knew about him actually through the political space because he's a libertarian, and so initially, like, he was doing it as a musician, so he had gotten started over there. But apparently he really likes comics, so he's like, man, I'm going to do a comic, and here we are.
I mean, he's a pretty badass metal singer.
Yeah, he is. I've got his Veracity album, and a couple of great songs off of that one.
I mean, it's a good example of like the market being there. I mean, this isn't even some people complain about some other independent comic creators where they get a large amount of funds, but it's maybe not a huge amount of backers. It's because people are buying more expensive packages and things like that. In this case, as of right now, Eric July's got over 30,000 purchases on his campaign, which shows you that if that audience spreads out in decent numbers to buying independently created comic books, that is the kind of numbers that can support a whole bunch of creators' projects on a frequent basis, right? In this case with Yakov, his project, it's probably built so it can still be maintained and built without having to sell 30,000 units. But if maybe like that audience represents a few thousand go to different people to buy other projects because they've now been introduced to the comic book, collecting, and they want to be, into that space, it's a really good opportunity to grow that indie market beyond just maybe a few hundred people.
Yeah, and that's a really good point when you mention that it's not just that any one creator gets really successful. It's the question of like, what does the creator then do that turns around and reflects the medium? And because in Eric's case too, I do think he's on a mission to grow independent comics generally, very similar to like what Iconic wants to do. That, right, like you may come in this case on ISOM, right? That's Eric July's title, right? Or you may come in on Common America like I did. But then you're right. Then you go out and you start looking for other ones. You look for classics. You look for more indies. And so, yeah, like that's almost like part of the strategy is like, how do we grow the tide as much as we grow our own titles?
Yakov, in your experience, I mean, how do you feel? How have you approached growing your audience and kind of developing it? Besides just like, the internet and social media, is there any, specific strategy you've tried to employ to grow beyond where you're at?
That's a real challenge, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, most of what I've been trying to do is, through various internet, methods, whether it's, people on Twitter who I connect with and then, cross promote, or joining or finding, Facebook groups or Discord servers that are, have people who are not just writers, who are also readers in the stuff that I'm trying to write and promote. And just, to try and, because the hardest part really is just finding where the people are who need to get the books in front of, because they don't know it's there, they can't buy it. But finding them isn't always the easiest thing. That's part of why I started doing conventions locally here, just, to get some more visibility among people, get some word of mouth from, a few people at least, which has happened. I've gotten several sales from word of mouth, over these past couple of months through the conventions, through knowing people in the area. And so, I mean, it's a little early to see how well that's going to do, but hopefully, going to be becoming a regular at conventions here and stuff, will be able to, grow a local audience as I try and grow, I guess, for lack of a better term, my international audience through online stuff, because that, makes that a lot easier.
because I mean, obviously the Eric July route and a lot of others is kind of trying to use YouTube as a platform to build an audience that will then feel like supporting your comic creation, and that I think that's a very specific kind of route to go. Not everybody is going to be in a position to kind of pull that off. So I think there needs to be maybe a little bit of a better platform system method for some indie creators who maybe aren't as YouTube friendly. I mean, it's weird to say it that way, but not everybody is going to be a personality that can get 500,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, especially not fast enough to really grow something quickly either. So I mean, building that kind of audience takes time for pretty much everybody anyway. So it's a lot of time investment, and then you're not going to see results in most cases. For a while with YouTube, I've toured around with doing a little. I use some videos here and there, but it's just a matter of between everything else I'm trying to do, trying to find the time to write, record, and then edit stuff. Or just it's time management is difficult. So just just one more thing to try and deal with, and I would like to start doing a little bit of that at some point, but like I said, I have to just organize myself to be able to manage all of that first. And I want to try and do more blog posts too, which I'm very bad at being regular with that. So a lot of things I'd like to do if I had the time and the ability, but time is limited, money's limited,
and of course making the the product itself, making the books, because you're right, that's what it is. It's a commercial project. There's a lot of marketing strategies, and of course, being a personality is one of them. I know the iconic guys, they're running around to cons all the time, and I know, of course, same thing here. That's of course what we're trying to do here is look for the Ascendant art, just look at the different projects out there as well. Now, back on the Light into Another World series. So I don't know why I was thinking more about world building again, but it's like you mentioned, it's kind of a pretty standard, I guess, type of fantasy world built up for this. And I think you guys can hear we've got some lifting going on down in our basement right now.
Well, hopefully they don't get sent to another world.
Chen knows what she's doing.
Nice.
Actually, she has gotten quite strong now.
There you go, powerlifting. But I think we were circling back to the project and asking a question, I think, Mike.
Yeah, getting back, because again, I'm just getting more curious about, I guess, just some of the characters. Also, speaking about getting a hold of books, so I know you're doing the fundraiser for 6 through 10 right now. Is there anywhere that you can get the earlier books?
Yeah, the first 5, I mean, they're available through several of the reward tiers on the Kickstarter, and the rest, and otherwise, I mean, apart from that, they're all on Amazon. And these new 5 will all be on Amazon once they're finished 100% and released and given and sent to backers first, and then I'll be releasing them one at a time, on a monthly basis once everything is ready and everything from the Kickstarter is delivered.
Yep, and this is, of course, a question I got too. So we've got, of course, the main figure. Does he? So just tell us more about some of the characters, kind of who's on his team, who's he fighting. I just want to kind of get an idea of the world some more still.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil things because I'm trying. I just finished writing book 10. I'm now outlining the next 5. So I don't want to mix myself up and say stuff I shouldn't say. But
so let's just say books 1 through 5, sell it to me.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the main character who was a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces over here, tank commander. I mean, it's because I was not in a tank, but I was in the Armored Corps, so I'm biased. So of course I was going to put somebody in the same unit that I was in because I have that loyalty, I guess. So, and he's a very proactive person, a very religious person, and very driven with what he knows is right and what's wrong, and he's not willing to take no for an answer when it comes to getting stuff done, essentially, which is part of something else I would say before I really wanted a main character who is much more proactive than you normally see. You know, most characters end up in an isekai world and they kind of just are told, okay, you're here to do this, this, and this. Whereas in the first book, my main character, he ends up, for the reasons that get explained later, he ends up just, you know, appearing from the portal in the middle of like a field somewhere. And when he gets, you know, finds some people to help him out, to let him know a little bit about where he is or what's going on, he ends up in like a small town when he realizes there's a problem there with, you know, some goblins that are basically, you know, causing a lot of issues, attacking people and doing damage in the countryside over there. And he decides, well, I'm not going to go walk over to the capital city to find out why I was, you know, pulled through a portal. I'm first going to stay here for a little bit and help you guys fix that problem and, you know, get rid of them, because that's the right thing to do, essentially. And like, he doesn't really care about, you know, beyond that at that point. And that, you know, leads to that almost unintentionally ingratiating himself with, you know, the people in that region. And that has, you know, repercussions down the line once he does move on, and then the plot, you know, kind of takes off at the end of book one. And over the course of book one, he meets the first two of the party members. So Kerala, who's the cat girl, who's on cover of the new one. She's on cover of, I think, volume 6 and volume 10, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. She's on volume 1's cover. So, I mean, she's one of the first people he meets. Once he goes through the portal, he kind of saves her and one of her like traveling companions from a goblin attack. And so that was just it's a very good way for him to meet somebody. And then she's the one who brings him to the nearest town and kind of helps him, I guess, settle in a little bit, for lack of a better term, with his new surroundings. And then the other main character that he meets in that book is Sela, who's the elf character, who's kind of more, I guess, I don't know if wild is the right term, but kind of like, very much into doing what she feels like doing, and more of like irreverent personality. So she gets to have a lot of fun, semi-comedic moments over the course of not just the first books, but also the series as a whole. And he's a very fun character to write. Actually, I enjoy those kind of characters. So, and then I kind of slowly introduced the main group, because there's a total of 7 in the main group. So I introduced 2 at a time, essentially, over the course of volumes 1 through 3, to just give each of them time to find, end up with the group and then settle in and get a little bit of time with them, and then
kind of show their stuff. Yeah. I was gonna say, is it so you say 7? Is it just no, sorry. I'm sorry for doing that. So I'm just thinking, team of 7. I'm just trying to think of like kind of like how you put all those characters together. So are they always like all together? Or are they? Yeah, I don't know. Just tell us more about the adventures. This is
most of the time they're all together. I mean, sometimes for plot reasons they do end up splitting up. Although I do avoid it when most of the time, because it's only the book is only one viewpoint. It's a first person perspective from the main character's point of view. So if they're not around him, you're not going to see them. So unless the plot needs them to split up, I try and keep them, together more or less. I mean, obviously there's some chapters where someone is off doing something or other, whether it's an official thing or someone just not in that particular scene, because obviously everybody needs to get scenes on their own sometimes. But generally, I have the whole group together, and I mean, it is more fun. I have played around with the idea. I haven't done it yet, but for later books in the series, I have played around with the idea of splitting up the group again and giving maybe a couple like interlude chapters from the third person perspective of one of the supporting characters who might be far from the rest of the team right now, just so that we don't go half a book without seeing somebody. But so far that hasn't been necessary for the story, so I haven't done it yet. And I do like having the very narrow single first person point of view for this series, because it really, I think, works. It works better for this kind of story. I mean, I think I don't know if I don't think all the isekai light novels are written first person, but a lot of them are, and it lets you, I guess, get a little bit more immersed in the main character and also in the world, and it keeps things simple. My previous series, I had as many as 9 viewpoint characters in a single book, and I was ready to do something a little bit simpler and a little bit, not as much to kind of choreograph where everybody is at any given time. So I was very happy to just say I'm doing first person, one character, and then that's it, and just everything centers around that.
There you
It's
go.
getting into George R.R. Martin territory with that many perspective characters.
That was just one book. That was most of the. I mean, the rest of that series, it maxed out. I think about 7, but even that was pushing it a little bit, which is why, like, I'm probably not going to do that many viewpoints in a book again for a while, because it was just a lot to. I had to keep track of where everybody was, and everybody was moving around because that was a whole galaxy setting. So everybody was all different places, and but also the plot has to at some point converge with each other, and so it was a lot more to manage. I wanted something simpler and just very easy to manage on my own, and so far it's working out pretty well.
I was waiting for you to notice that, Vinny. Anyway, question about the first-person perspective. Do you find that it adds any interesting challenges to your world building?
A little bit. I mean, I think it actually makes it easier in some respects because you're so close, with the one viewpoint, that it kind of lends a little bit better to getting information across in a more natural, in a more natural feeling way than if you're a third person, where it's much easier to fall into the info dump trap. Whereas first person, it's a lot easier because it's it's the way he is referring to himself, and you have and anything that is encountered is you're seeing it directly through his understanding of it in a direct way versus a little bit more removed, as you might have with third person. And also it enabled me to get a lot more about my main character across right away without needing to resort to an info dump because I was in that first person. And I actually did start writing it at first and third person because I do prefer third person usually. But after like a chapter or so, I realized, no, this will work better in first person. And even though I had written maybe one short story in first person before this, and I've read very few first person books, but I could just tell that it was the better choice for this series, and so I just went with it.
So not being a prose writer per se, like Joey is over there, I would think that for a world building standpoint, the main challenge I would have would run into just the you can only reveal what the character knows.
Yeah.
And that would be, especially when you're trying to,
especially in
the
an
rules
isekai where the character theoretically doesn't know anything.
That's part of why I wanted to keep the world, relatively simple and not try and shove in too much that then needs to be explained, because that would just bog down the story. And I want to keep the story at a relatively fast pace and not get stuck on that too much. So I wanted to keep it simple, so that would be relatively, straightforward to get across both to the main character and the reader, and not require a lot of space devoted to that, and then just allow the adventure to start pretty early, and then just continue onward with gradually reveal and learn a little bit more as needed, essentially, for the plot. Like as he spends time around people, or as he learns about the country that he ends up in, and a little bit more about the rest of the world. Like I very gradually expanding things over the course of the series. I mean, as of like the new set of volumes, like we've seen like maybe most or at least half of the continent's like main countries at some point or another, or main regions. And there's more that we haven't seen yet that they're going to come up at some point in the next, volumes 11 to 15 or beyond that. But I mean, like I said, that's part of why I really wanted to keep the world pretty simple, because it can be more difficult to get across, the world stuff through first person and through a narrow focus story, and I wanted the focus to be on the characters more than on the world itself. Anyway, so just lend more to just going that route, and like I said, just revealing what's needed for the plot as I go along, and just not putting extraneous stuff in there. Because
so kind of like you've got your data book, and like you know what's there, but you're also like, okay, what does he know is there yet?
Yeah. Obviously, I know more than he does because you're as the author, you're always supposed to know more than the characters and the readers. And I mean, I don't know if there's like a kind of like an iceberg kind of thing where like what the readers know, what the readers see is the top of the iceberg, and then what the author has to know is all the way down the whole iceberg to know obviously the plot stuff in terms of where the story is going to go, and how that relates to the world and how that ties in. So I mean, I have like a lot more that I know that's like I said, slowly being revealed as things move along, and there's plenty more that hasn't shown up yet.
Nice. And now we're coming up on 9 o'clock, so I know free play will be coming up sometime pretty soon. But yeah, if you don't mind, just tell us all again about the Kickstarter and some other places people can check you out, and then we'll kind of get into some free play.
Yeah, well, Kickstarter, I mean, just launched today. I mean, well, technically yesterday for me at this point, but anyway, it's been only a matter of 10 hours since it launched, and so far it's going all right, I think. So that's available. That's available now. It's funding for the next 30 days. And like I said earlier, the first 5 books in the series, plus all my other books, are all available on Amazon. Although you can get any of my books through the Kickstarter, either through the direct rewards or through add-ons. And actually, add-ons are probably the best way to get my books right now because since it's through Kickstarter, I'm able to charge less for them than Amazon makes me charge with the way the printing costs with Amazon work. So the cheapest way to get my paperbacks, at least for sure, is to add them on to at least my previous books. To add them on after you back Find Another World Volume 6 through 10 at whatever tier you want. And also, of course, anybody who's going to look at the campaign page, you should definitely watch the trailer that I made for it because I got about 20 seconds worth. There's some more coming, actually, of original animation done for it by the same artist. By the same artist who did all the art for the series. And he's really, really good at animating. I mean, it's like the quality level that I got from him is actually like better than I would have even expected. So definitely watch that because that was really fun. It took a long time to get done, longer than I probably expected, but that's because I had done that. I didn't commission animation before. Now I know better, but it really came out great, and I hope people get to see it because he deserves all the accolades for bringing everything to life. I mean, seeing my characters animated is really cool.
Nice. And yes, Fiona Wolf has also mentioned here. So you said it's been up 10 hours, already at $11.79. So it looks like about a third of the way funded already, or I guess a little over a quarter. Quarter to a third.
Almost 30% funded, which is good because I really want to hit the stretch goals again. Last time I hit 2 stretch goals to add additional. I had 3 last time, but I had a lower goal. But to set get additional internal artwork for each book. So I really hope again to hit the stretch goals to at least add additional artwork for each book because that brings it up to 7 again. And I want to keep it consistent. So hopefully we get there. And also, other stretch goals I have are to get individual character art done, so I could potentially make T-shirts or other merchandise with them on it. Because obviously I have the covers, but the covers with multiple characters on it, you can't separate one for the other to do individual stuff. So I would like to be able to have the extra funding to do that. And also, what I really hope to hit is the next stretch goal after that, where my artist will get a bonus if we get beyond a certain point, like up between 7,000 and 8,000. If we get there, anything between 7,000 and 8,000 up to a full 1,000, he would get as a bonus because he really deserves it. He's gone above and beyond, for doing this project, for bringing everything to life, and he's just really great to work with for the last couple years now. So
yeah, I can see that looking at it just in that style. It definitely looks very compelling. So yeah, definitely something I'll have to check out. Yeah,
and he puts a lot of thought into it too. Like there isn't a whole lot of it in this series, but like some technical aspects related to some of the stuff that shows up. Like, he puts more thought into it than I do sometimes. Like also he's also going to be doing my manga project that I'm hopefully going to launch sometime, hopefully early next year. And for that series, it's like with starfighter pilots. So I asked him to make a flight suit for the characters, who would be wearing, and he came back with like a whole sheet with like little notes on what each part of the suit is for. And I didn't put that much thought into the suit myself. So like that's the kind of artist he is. Like he doesn't just like look at what I send and then just try and just churn it out. He really puts a lot more thought into it. And like he's like, I'm happy to suggest.
Yeah, it really is. And also knows John Hansen over here is like, hey, are you hiring any new artists? Because I'll say this. So that's John PA Draws on Twitter. So you can definitely check out his channel. He's got he does a whole bunch of artwork. So definitely worth checking out. But no, that's really good, and it's good. Just know that you're supporting the artists like that. So I will definitely have to check out some of the books for this series then. So yeah, guys, I've linked the Kickstarter. Right, I've started up at the top of the chat, I believe, and apparently my dog is saying hello too. But yeah, I've linked that up at the top of the chat. So guys, go check that out. Back it if you'd like to, and with that, I think we can just kind of jump into some fun free play time.
Okay, I'll probably stick around for a little bit, but at some point I should go to sleep. But I don't have to go anywhere tomorrow after all. So,
because if I remember correctly, you said you were in Israel right now. So what time is it over there?
It's a little past 4 a.m.
All right, man, that's some endurance.
Well, like I said, I don't have to go anywhere tomorrow. I work from home. Like my day job stuff is all at home anyway. So. And my hours are flexible, so I could, afford to do this. Not every day, but occasionally. It won't kill me to stay up late one night.
Yeah, I was gonna say work from home is very nice in that sense.
There's staying up late, and then there's just staying up for like an entire 24-hour period. I mean,
I think that once or twice. That's not fun.
You must be getting close to that level at this point.
Yeah, a little close. I mean, that's why I probably won't be able to stay for that much longer. But
it gets harder and harder the older you get, too. Like when I was still doing my military service, all-nighters were pretty common, no big deal. Like nowadays, it's like I'm up till like 1 a.m, and I'm like, what did I do? Why did I do this? I'm gonna be so miserable tomorrow.
I was gonna say usually it's better at that point to say, okay, I'll go to bed at like 8 or 9, and then like I'll wake up at that time.
Yeah.
And also, like, I'm watching the comments here. So, Vinny, I'm gonna have to call. Like, what are we talking about here?
Our epic ReZero argument is going on now months. But
the ReZero feud emerged in the chat for a little bit there.
Seems like part of this is he needs to figure out who his best girl really is because he's got it wrong. So,
he does have it wrong. That's the whole point of ReZero. He has it wrong, and all he is a sniveling little simp whose only power is dying.
You haven't even gotten through season 2 of the anime. You can't talk about best girl in an informed capacity. So I'm not even going to listen to you until you at least finish season 2 of the anime. So stop whining about it.
Then we will have this conversation next week, my friend, because I'll finish it. I'll finish it out of spite.
There we go.
Spite yet? You can't even deal. I mean, have they released the first episodes of Overlord and Devil's a Part-Timer season 2?
No, they have not. And
I think Overlord started, but
he won't watch it subbed.
I can't
he only does dub.
I've got bad eyes and I'm a slow reader, so subs just do not work for me.
Got it.
You're being.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say he's got to get deal. If you're gonna watch anime like a and be a real weeb, you've got to go subbed. But it's
I
all
just
right.
learned Japanese.
That's true.
Here's the thing. Okay, I've been watching anime since the '90s, early '90s. So I don't give a shit if all you purists say I have to watch it in Japanese to be a true weeb. I've got more weeb cred than most people.
Well, the 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of subs. I mean, everything that came out, like Toonami or whatever, was all dubbed, if I remember correctly.
Back in the day, if you actually wanted to get dubbed, you had to go to like a movie store, not even like a rental place, like a store that just sold movies, and buy the VHSs. And that's what I was doing in high school.
Yep. Now, of course, since you're still here, Yakov, and we're talking about best girls, I have a question. Who do you think is the best girl from your series, or for your fans? Like, who are the ones that they're fighting over?
Well, like I said before, I'm not going to pick one myself because they're all my creations and they're all equal for me. So I'm not going to do the dangerous thing of picking one for myself. But I mean, a couple of my readers have already said that Akirui, the Moth Girl, is their best girl choice. Like, she seems to be very popular. I mean, she's probably the one that I've heard from readers on their own mention the most. I think a couple have said Kerala also, the cat girl, as best girl. But so I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm happy to let the readers decide that for themselves or fight it out amongst themselves. While I just sit back and watch.
Yep. So, I mean, that's good to keep it balanced, though, because I have seen some creators, like, they will officially say that, then if you just let them talk a little bit more, you find out the truth.
Yeah.
Well, there's always got to be a number one seed.
Always.
I mean, you look at a show like, and I've brought it up before, because I feel like it might have the most top-tier waifu game of any harem-y ecchi show, which is High School DxD. There's arguments to be made for tons of girls on that one, even though Rias is best girl. But that's I have very distinct best girl opinions, and that's how it should be. Now, Joey is always going to go with any elf-based best girl, except for some reason ReZero, which is crazy. I have no idea why.
She's a half elf. She's impure.
That's standard of purity, huh?
I don't know. Like I said, I guess I got to finish season 2, but like there was very little character development for her in the first season. She was just a MacGuffin.
Well, it looks like we have a vote for a favorite from Galaxy
series.
Ascendant. Yeah.
Yeah. Although there are actually fewer to choose from. I think there are only 2 female viewpoint characters in that series, actually. So I guess it's easier, maybe an easier choice there because there's fewer to choose between. But yeah, that's probably a good way to pick it. What Fiona Wolf just said also, that picking a best girl at the end of the series after you've seen the entire story and what everybody does
and who they're made of. Yep.
Then you can get a full measure of it and then make a decision.
But that's not how weebs work, unfortunately.
Yes, of course not.
We commit and choose at the beginning.
Yeah, well, that's why.
And we go crazy.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to provide a variety. I mean, for my manga also, there's a wide. I mean, that's having an entire female cast, so anybody can be best girl in that project.
The irony is, me and Joey don't even disagree about who's the best girl in ReZero. I just think he won't give Amelia any credit at all, or Subaru. So,
wait, we don't? I thought you thought it was Rem.
I said we do agree. We agree that Rem is best girl.
No, I still think Ram is better.
Ram isn't even. She's not eligible.
Why isn't she eligible?
All right, we got to fight. Let's fight.
Because the only 2 choices that are acceptable are Amelia or Rem.
Are we starting round 2 impromptu?
Well, you're
of the
defining
waifu
best girl by best romantic interest for the main character, or just the best female character, because that would be two potentially different.
Those are still the two. Yeah, there's still only two choices from ReZero. It's Amelia or it's Rem.
What's his name in ReZero? What's the main character's name?
Subaru.
Yeah, Subaru is prone to flights of fancy, so Rom is a better fit for him anyway, because she will rein his ass in every frickin' time. And he knows this because he almost killed it, or she almost killed him.
I mean, they've all killed him several times. I mean,
I suppose that is true as well.
I mean, I think even let's see, I'm trying to think of any of them. Even the little girl that was not really a little girl with the poison teddy bear. Spoiler, killed him.
I mean, it's not a spoiler that he dies a lot, so I don't think he's gonna care.
Trying to think. I mean, I suppose you could make it. I would say maybe Krush you could make an argument for because of the arc with the white whale. But I mean, I still don't even put them in. They're like tier. Nah. They're tier B. They're tier B.
Third tier, best third tier. Like
there's always interior orbit. Then there's the secondary orbit, and that's where Rom.
Rob Kuro coming in hot.
Rem greater than Amelia, who's greater than Ram. I mean, I can agree with that.
I like Ram.
That's basically my I would move Ram a little further, just even out of that mix, because I don't think she hits the equation.
I mean, Rob Kuro, his avatar indicates he likes Mish out of the Common America cast. So I don't know if I can trust his judgment.
His judgment is sound.
I mean, one thing me and Joey will agree on is that Rem is the best girl.
I mean, I like Ram, but as far as actions taken in the show, Rem is best girl, hands down.
See, I mean,
I just don't think she's best fit for the main character.
Which one just pops a Morning Star? Yeah, and the Morning Star. Come on, you can't sleep on the Morning Star.
No. So I do want to ask Yakov, like, what are your go-to isekais, since you seem familiar with the genre?
It's a difficult question now, because a couple years ago I would have said Shield Hero, but Shield Hero season 2 is terrible.
I mean, I think the second half kind of picked up.
It was not as bad as the first half, but the second half. My problem with the second half was it felt like they were cramming in a whole season's worth of plot into like 5 episodes.
Well, I think that's because with the
really rushed.
I think they did get rushed because of the virus of unspecified origin, restrictions. If you look, the first season was 26 episodes with 2 cores. Yeah. This one probably was intended to be a 26 episode 2-core season, but they also, Shield Hero is a pretty massive hit, and they wanted to make sure they could get season 3 and keep progressing. So I think they just shortened season 2 royally, and and season 3 is going to be back to the normal setup. The same thing sort of happened a little bit in terms of the episode order and structure with Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, which is actually now my second favorite isekai behind ReZero. After one season, I'm sure. Did you watch that one?
Not yet. I've heard it's very good, but I haven't got around to it yet.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But they got screwed up a little bit and had to. I think they shortened their episode runs a little bit, and they also had a 3 or 4 month gap on season 1. So the COVID virus of unspecified origin stuff really jarred the anime cycles.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of why, but it doesn't change the fact that season 2 did not work for me because the second half was so rushed. All the payoff was no gratification to that. Like everything, it did not feel earned because it happened too quickly, at least for me. And it was just like, okay, well now they're all back together. I mean, it just did not, like, that whole thing just didn't. I don't know. I just didn't get anything out of it because it felt so rushed, and it didn't help the fact that the first half was so slow. Pun not intended, because of the tortoise. But I don't know. So I mean, I guess in terms of the shows that I still like, I mean, Konosuba is obvious, even though it's a parody. I'm looking forward to season 3 of that because that's just always just fun to watch. And I don't know if it's getting a season 2 or I haven't looked it up yet. But Saga of Tanya the Evil, I also like, partially because they're just a different type of show, and also because the main character is a little bit different, also than what you see in a lot of the other stuff that's been popular
The
lately.
main character is kind of a bad guy.
Yes.
I like
Yeah, but
Saga.
it's entertaining.
I like Saga of Tanya the Evil too, but like,
Yeah. No, she's not a. I wouldn't call her a good person necessarily.
no.
But still an interesting. But still an interesting main character and a different main character than what you see.
And
in
a
your
really
Shield
interesting
character.
world. I really like the world crafting they've got going in that too.
Yeah, it's like pseudo World War One kind of World War One/2.
Yeah, World War I with magic and fucking jetpacks and shit.
And then they have tanks also. They're kind of pushing technology levels a little bit together from both world wars, I think. But it's fiction, so that's fine.
Yeah,
Wait,
Tanya.
jetpacks.
Yeah, well, Tanya the Evil, they have magic-powered flying devices. The German, well, they're not German, but effectively the German side, which is what Tanya is on, has like basically jetpack kind of systems.
They have like jet boots, and then like
France had like
Scandinavians
horses, like knights, like out of a chess
and
game.
the Scandinavians are doing the skiing thing, like they're
Yeah.
flying around on skis, and the Americans are using. I hate the Americans' jetpacks or their flying machines. They're the ones using brooms, right?
No, wasn't that England?
That might have been England, but oh my god, I was like, oh, I hate them. I'm so glad they're all dying right now.
Because I don't think the American ones are in it yet. Because if I remember right, where we left off, the daughter of the I think it was Norway, or it was supposed to be the country it was from, where her dad got unceremoniously removed from the game board by Tanya. She had gone to the U.S. as an orphan and was being trained there to then go and fight in the European theater eventually.
Yeah, but wasn't her father with like an American Special Forces unit? Like I thought he was with the Americans and they were getting involved.
I think they might have been sending like equipment, but they weren't actively fighting yet. It's been a while since I watched that scene because they did the OVA. They did the OVA where they were in the desert, and so I got that one. It's been a while. The OVA was good too. The art was very good, and then of course they've moved to, if you watch Isekai Quartet, was just funny. You're probably able to watch it now because Joey, you've seen enough of I think you've seen all the Isekai shows that feed into it now. Because I think in the last season,
ReZero, Saga, Tanya the Evil,
Konosuba.
Yeah, I've seen all those.
Well, they also added Overly Cautious Hero.
Yeah, I loved Overly Cautious Hero. It was hysterical.
So, Mike, I don't think we've ever talked about that one with you on the show, have we?
Maybe not. Yeah, enlighten me.
So, Overly Cautious Hero is a normal isekai where a god character is summoning a hero from, of course, Japan to help save another world. And this character is overly cautious. Like, he's got stats off the, whatever.
Think of the guy who doesn't leave the starting area until he's max level.
Yeah, so the goddess is constantly like, you need to go face this little challenge. And he's like, no, I need to train.
Yeah, she tells him when he first gets there, she's like, ultimately you will defeat the Demon Lord and save the world. And he's like, all right, get out. And he just pushes her out of the room and he starts doing push-ups and sit-ups and everything. Yeah. She's like, what are you doing? He's like, if I'm going to fight a Demon Lord, I got to be shredded.
And so his catchphrase is like, I am like 100% prepared for this. It's like, and so he doesn't go into battle unless he's 100% prepared for like every contingency within it. And
yeah, I think the first place he goes, he like saves this town from one of the Demon Lord's generals, and then in burning the body, destroys the whole town.
Yep. So he's 100% prepared until it doesn't work anyway.
No, he overkills.
No, he burned the body. He made sure that there was no body left.
He defeats the bad guy, and the bad guy's defeated, and then he basically does like a hell level fire inferno spell to burn,
just in case.
to burn every atom of the demon that he had just killed, so that it can't, like, Jason style pop back up.
And he casts it several times until he runs out of magic. Then he drinks a mana potion and does it again. And he burns down the whole village in the process.
And what's great is he had saved the village and like not even any property damage after the initial defeats, and so he was completely responsible for destroying their entire town.
Nice. Very nice.
And there's a lot more backstory that gets revealed over the course of the show to give it more story depth, but it's a funny conceit that lends itself to a lot of humor. Because I do think isekai is really well positioned to be a humorous, anime specifically, or a comic book or whatever. Like Konosuba is really good evidence of that.
Isekai Quartet also, it puts all these characters. I mean, to be honest, I like the Overlord characters better in Isekai Quartet because I like them better in a comedic setting than in their normal setting.
I love when Ainz, because Ainz is the original person he was that got that gets isekai'd into the other world, is not the smartest guy, but he's supposed to be like so he lets Albedo and was it Demiurge, like basically. So these guys are like, of course, we understand what you're doing, boss. And he's like, well, enlighten everyone else, why don't you? Because he has no idea what they do. And then they lay out this really intricate, like, well thought out plan with multiple levels. And he's like, yes, of course, that's what I was doing. It's like, I just didn't want to say it to you. In Isekai Quartet, he's doing the same thing, but with schoolwork. And then,
he gets like terrified of Aqua from Konosuba because she could actually hurt him in that world.
Yeah, because he was surprised when she did the what is it? The demon? Undead, clear undead spell, and she's a goddess, so it actually hurts him. Oh,
yeah, he's like terrified of some of these people who are not that dangerous to him, but he thinks they're really dead. Also, like, I don't know if it's not really a spoiler. There's like one scene where he was like time stopping. And a few other characters are immune to it, and he's like just freaked out by that. That was really funny.
Yeah, where he's like, "How are you still moving? How are they all still moving?" Because I think it was Tanya and Aqua
and Subaru, I think also.
And Subaru was doing it, and
it's like, how powerful are these people? Meanwhile, the audience knows, but so that's why all those characters. I mean, heck. That from that series especially, I liked them a lot more in that setting. And like also, Overlord had its own like comedy, like sketch, like spinoff also, which I also like more than the main show, to be honest. Because although on the other hand, you need the main show to exist in order for the characters to be more fun in the comedic setting, because that they're very serious in the normal show. But I'd rather just have more comedy stuff in them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a fine line. Like, but I mean, like, especially comedy anime can be difficult because there's a lot of translation. Because comedy is hard
in general. Yes,
but I think that
comedic moments I could do, but I don't think I'm up to writing like a full-on comedy anytime soon. It's not easy.
I was going to say it is a lot harder than it looks, because you're right. It's also like you have to structure it to hit certain tropes, and you're right, have a certain structure tied into it. Although, of course, there are people who do it. They can pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but what's great is the ones that we're talking about kind of have an inherent ability to do kind of slapsticky, over-the-top humor, which I think that translates, like especially Konosuba, like when Aqua ends up inside the giant frog's mouth constantly every time. It's hilarious.
I mean, it's not just her; it's all of them.
Or if Darkness starts talking about like because of the way that the animation's going, where she's like, "I want to be captured," and then what are they going to do to me?
Oh, when she ran into the headless knight, like that was so dang funny. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do any of that to you. It's just this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then she's disappointed.
No, she wasn't listening. Like she would not listen to him. She just kept fantasizing out loud to him. He was a Dullahan. That's what they're called.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, she was the paladin in the group, but she's like, "Oh, your defensive stats are great. What are you gonna do? I will get if I have to be captured and tortured and have every thing happen to me." And she starts going into detail, and he's like, "No, that's not what I need at all."
Like, listen, I just came here to tell you guys to stop blowing up my castle.
Yeah. And then, of course, Konosuba's like, with the whole group, because there's also Megami, right? Who only does explosion magic. Only does it. It's like, and
well, I'm thinking of like your 5-man band. That sounds kind of like the big guy case of, hey, I've got an answer, and that answer is blowing it up, and therefore that's what I'll do.
But yeah, so she's a remarkably gifted magician, wizard, witch, whatever word is proper for that world. But she won't learn anything else. She only wants to do explosion magic, and she does basically the giant explosion spell that she can only do once a day, and then she's useless after that.
And because she's not high leveled enough to actually use the spell, it basically takes away so much of her strength that she can't even walk after she casts one time.
So that's a real glass fan trope right there.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Rob.
You may want to mute your YouTube if you've got that on in the background.
Hey, Rob.
Hello.
There we go.
Hello.
We got our 10-second lag echo there.
Well, greetings and salutations, everyone.
Hey, nice to have you on. It's always fun to have some members of the audience come and visit. It seems we've gotten pretty good turnout tonight.
So I think
just been listening to your conversations, and I've watched all those animes I've been talking about.
Nice.
Good, a man of taste. That's always one.
I mean, I agreed to have him on because he's on my side when it comes to the best girl from Common America debate. He's got it right.
So much so that every time someone makes a Misha art on Twitter, 3 people tag me. Hey Robert, hey Rob, here's some Misha art. Come get it.
I was gonna say, I think was it between the different collections? We've got a pretty big collection of the fan arts going. So it sounds like you've got anything Misha covered then.
Yeah, pretty much so. I got like over 200 saved right now, but there's like over 400 pieces of art right now. Probably 500 counting.
I was gonna say, let me check my folder again, because anytime I see something new on Twitter, I save it. Where is it? Twitter.
Yeah, I probably missed quite a bit, so I'm just collecting as I can.
Let's see, properties.
Oh, look at that,
Yeah,
JoJo. You're the only one who doesn't get it.
Yeah, I've got 323 on mine, and that includes the fan characters.
260 for me.
Nice. Yeah, at some point we gotta like put together a like an online collection. So we gotta find a page for that, or like I am a web developer. At some point I gotta do that, and we just gotta figure out what's out there, dude.
Yeah, I might have to let y'all guys handle that. I can add, but I can't make sites or pages. I'm not there yet.
Yep, just kind of a thing that we do. And oh hey, and Tyler C. World has come on too. Hey Tyler. I was gonna say, Tyler, you gotta check out Yakov's stuff. All right, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I just because if it wasn't clear, also you are completely outnumbered because I also put Misha as best girl. So you're
Someone's got to defend Kimiko, dude.
I mean, if you want someone who's not the best, okay, continue.
I just like her mostly because color schemes, power. I'm all about the fire, and of course how she's going after Siggy.
I know. Just I was gonna say, and this is the part where like I think Mark was saying that there's no favorite, but like he also in some of his Japanese comments meant it's like was it like Misha is like living in Carly's house, she's eating Carly's food, she's kissing Carly's boy. She is the alpha.
Yeah, pretty much so.
But I don't know, I can't get behind it, dude. I've got to go with like the very pure girl that's got the wild side, and that is Kimiko.
I mean, that's fine, but Misha works at a gun store.
Well, as they say, every rose has its thorns, and Kimiko pretty much represents that. She's a rose, but she has thorns if you push her enough.
Or if you start talking about yes, her validity running a company, yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I said that before. All three girls, besides Carly, are part of these big organizations and corporations, and they're gonna exist to help Carly up as her business grows.
Yep. And so
I guess the one advantage to Kimiko would be like you get all you can eat ramen, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, I'm like, I love guns and I love ramen. But guns are a lot more expensive than ramen, so that inn is a better inn.
Not wrong.
yeah, but if you have like a whole oh, I see, because was it Misha's also the mercenary too, right?
Right.
You know, that's in that sense. And
Well,
then we've got
we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait a bit longer to delve into that, but we gotta focus on Sylvia and Vicky next month.
yeah, that was interesting when who was it when Tim Lim was on our show and he mentioned Vicky may not change that much. Definitely, if you want to do your fan speculation right there.
Well, if you mean joining the team Common Core, maybe I'll have to wait a lot longer for that. To have that 5-man band you were talking about.
Yeah, at first I was thinking it was going to be like a 5-man band and like it would be around the 5 elements. Because if you think about it, right, like the classic 5 elements for Western are of course right, Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and Spirit. And so you could kind of see that happening with Common Core, but then they said that's not what they're doing. So who knows? Maybe Vicky's going to go a totally different direction. Who knows?
Join the Black Ops team.
There you go. Or become like a kind of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, basically that.
I mean, if we're going to go Captain America route, who's going to be Hart?
Siggy.
Well,
He's gonna join the Black Ops team too, because he's the gun guy, so he's gonna get recruited.
Or is he going to end up being like because I remember from some of the people who were helping Mark out at the beginning, they leaned a lot on Sailor Moon. Is he going to end up like a Tuxedo Mask type character?
Yeah. But with guns.
And a forklift.
Yeah, just give him a sweet ass vehicle that's tricked out with guns and gadgets.
There you go. I was going to say we need it's an America comic. We need more pickup trucks, dude. And meanwhile, Tyler C. World here, he's wading into this debate too. So we've got Penelope from Black Ops.
I mean, they're all drawn in such a way as to be male gaze friendly, so we can all agree on that. So that's good. Don't have to worry about averting the male gaze.
Right, but the debate is on who is best girl. That's the debate.
It'd be
'Cause
nice
they were-
if Draw and Talk can come in here because that one person he had on earlier today kind of was grilling him about his girl with the mega fist being a bit sexualized.
I mean,
He knows what I'm talking about. Draw knows what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, anytime you do an action girl, though, like usually you have to have, like, usually that's the direction the costume design goes, though, right? Either it's like a leotard or it's something that implies a lot of movement.
look, we've talked about this so many times. Comic books as a business, the number one purchasers are males by far, like ridiculously, staggeringly.
Yeah, and a
Male.
lot of those males are teenage hormonal males. So,
And the
like-
males who get older who purchase comic books still enjoy that even more. So you're doing a disservice to your business model to not draw attractive female characters.
Well, if I haven't told, I don't think I told y'all yet, but I never read any Western comics for like 20 years until now with Common America. All I've read was manga for the longest time.
And manga sure as heck draws attractive female characters.
Sports.
There is a reason that my manga is
Flash
going to have an entirely female cast. I mean,
So I just couldn't get
That
into.
art style lends itself to that for sure. Yeah.
Well,
I just couldn't get into Western comics like DC or Marvel or anything. So
yeah, I mean, it's a just specifically. I mean, American superhero as a genre is very different, and I think there's a reason that it hasn't translated as well, and over time because of some choices that were made in the higher up. That's something that we've talked about a lot of times, but just to the core, like I don't think it's not fair to go after anybody. I remember, was it Danger Girl? I don't know if you guys all knew about that comic book, right? Nope. So it's let me find, because it was drawn by an artist who got in a lot of trouble on the internet's last few months. Do you remember J. Scott Campbell? We talked about him there, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Danger Girl was like his I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically spy. It's a spy action comic. And so it was, his book, but he drew it, J. Scott Campbell, and
Miss H has a strategy right here, but I know who she's talking about: Captain Orange and Lucky Star.
what do we got here?
But of course, I mean, it's also a little bit different because I think Lucky Star's role is a little bit different in that story too. That's why we instead have Captain Orange like meet interesting people and interesting ladies across all the different worlds.
Yeah.
Hey, and while you're getting that ready, that was One Piece news we saw that apparently there was that live action Powerpuff Girls that's being brought back from the dead, and in that case, they definitely did not understand the IP they were working on.
No.
But yeah, now back to a totally different topic. This is Danger Girl.
I found like an image that would load properly. So that's how J. Scott Campbell drew his characters. Ended was decently and of course popular, and that's how he draws all his characters. You remember now the Mary Jane fiasco was what got him in trouble because he did a cover with Spider-Man for Mary Jane where they said that it was completely impossible for a girl to sit the way he had drawn her and all this crazy silliness because he drew her very attractively. Some people had fixed the art online by making Mary Jane apparently more realistic and not as good to look at. So it is.
Somehow those covers did not take off, did they?
No, well, not those ones. But yeah, I think the resale value on J. Scott Campbell's covers went up. Those started going for higher dollars. So
Yep.
let's see.
I was going to say, this is part of the fun I'm doing right now is I'm working on some character. Sorry. But I was going to say I'm working on some character design right now, and that is something that I realize both for male and female characters is the female characters need to be attractive and the male characters need to be interesting. So like you can't have plain boring people in a comic book.
Or in fiction in general, if you want to have interesting people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's anime has a whole genre called slice of life, right, where it's supposed to just be ordinary life, but there's always something that makes the people interesting that makes you want to watch it. Yep. It's not just like Salaryman who's completely boring slice of life. Like it's high schoolers who are in
that's not entirely true. There's an anime called My Senpai is Annoying, and it's all about a salaryman and a salary woman, and they're just working.
Yep,
but my guess is that they have conflict with and conflict based on the fact that they're
kind of like midget.
Yeah, kind of like Azuki-chan wants to hang out. Like it's just conflict is interesting, right? You can have especially male-female conflict, the moonlighting situation, right, where you have two characters who have just conflict between each other, especially opposite sex. There's a natural inherent tension that you can take advantage of for a story.
Well, Michael liked this analogy, but there's a volatility to the chemistry that can be manipulated.
Yes, there's a little bit. If you create a metastable situation, it can go anywhere you want it to, if you just give it a little push.
You just add the right catalyst.
That's right. And then next thing you know, there is a reaction that takes place. Maybe a chain reaction.
It's all about that catalyst.
It's all about dropping in the right catalyst.
But so you were bringing up the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
Which is
onto a totally different topic here.
Yeah, so the live action reboot. So what's cool is Craig McCracken, who is the original creator of Powerpuff Girls. He's also the guy who did Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Oh, yeah, he's remaking both of them.
Yep, he's going to be working with the Hanna-Barbera animation studios to basically reboot and re-up and update and make new seasons of Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home. The day that story comes out, I think it was timed to try to take advantage of this. They leaked a story to Variety that the Powerpuff Girls live action show, which had been dead for a year, was now still. It was not actually dead, but in still development, which is weird because the people who they had to play the characters were released from their contracts and have moved on to other shows.
They're trying to ride the hype coattails to viability again, huh?
Yes, I don't think they're actually. I think this is by the people who have the production company trying to get this off the ground again.
Yeah, but as soon as I just saw the characters that they lined up, it's like, well, first of all, like the people they're lining up are like older teenagers or adults, and like that misses the point of the entire show.
I've seen the script and it's
the script leak and it killed the whole story.
Yeah. It's yeah, but then again, I mean, this is exactly why we're on a search for art ascending above the mainstream, because this is an example of mainstream art that apparently they really don't care about the IP that they were going from.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, at the end of the day, there's a core tenet to the Powerpuff Girls, right? They say it at the beginning of every single freaking episode. Sugar, spice, everything nice. Then they get the one with the adult versions, and it's like, there is no sugar or spice or anything nice about these girls. They're gross.
Yeah.
Like, just based on the script that I heard was piloted, they're gross. Like, there are no longer any sugar or spice or anything nice about any of them.
That got all replaced by cocaine and
Yeah, booger sugar doesn't count.
Wait. Please don't tell me there's actual cocaine in this script, dude.
There was.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I'm gonna let me.
Oh, you're pulling it up.
I'm gonna pull up some of the script dialogue.
So let's see. So meanwhile, we've got John Hanson here drawing attractive girls is in my blood. So I'm thinking like there's really not much for you to work with here, John. I'm sorry, dude.
Well, what actually got me into Common America was that just some guy before he started becoming an asshole. So he reviewed all 3 books. So that piqued my interest. So I looked at the Kickstarter, but Volume 1, the Kickstarter for Volume 1 ended. I said, "Oh man!" But when Volume 2 came along, I could get 2 books in one. So that's where it started.
Yep.
Okay, I gotta give it opinion. I don't have any direct problems with Just Some Guy. I've always been a big fan of Just Some Guy. I don't know why he suddenly went on the I hate religious people kick, but I'm taking a break from him. I'm hoping he calms down and, gets back to what made him a good content creator in the first place.
Yeah, but it seems nowadays you just gotta shit on people to get the hits,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, and I see a lot of straw manning in his arguments of late, and it's just, come on, man, dude, I respected you.
Yeah, man, he got me into this, so get it.
Same.
Really
He was one of the first I picked up when I started getting back into comics, and he was good.
all right. Here's one a line.
Oh
that
God.
Also, I'm sorry, Bloss is not. It's not a name.
Well, that's what she
Her
called
name is
it.
Blossom. It's
Cartoon.
Blossom.
So as you can see, the scene would be that Buttercup is trying to wake up Blossom, and so she
Who was
says,
unconscious by threatening her with embarrassment.
by leaking nudes. Here we go.
Apparently, it worked once, which means it's been done.
Blossom's fine. I saw on her Insta that she has a boyfriend. I saw on her LinkedIn that she got promoted. And I saw on her Facebook that she still talks to Grandpa despite their political difference. I mean, coming back here is probably triggering for her. Why? Because she's the one who killed Mojo. I mean, moveon.org. Number one, it's just terribly written.
Yeah.
And
that is no conversation that has ever happened in the history of ever.
But then the other part of this too is I'm thinking about from Common America. They play that one joke where Kimiko's like, "Hey Carly, like I know this about you, I know this about you, and I know your shoe size." Like it, and like they're basically playing up the creepy because it's a joke, right? But in this case, these are like friends who've known each other for a while, and it's like, why are you like stalking your friend that obsessively?
Well, they're technically sisters, so
yeah.
But in this case, it's pretty much.
In that case, if it's your sister, like, why do you need to stalk her on social media? Like, why can't you just talk to your sister?
Here's another one.
Huh, that's strange. Usually you would have 4 social medias, not 3. That's weird.
what the fuck? Like, yeah, there's a lot of political bullshit in this, huh?
Yeah. And then on top of that, because remember, right, Powerpuff Girls is supposed to be about girls who are what, like 8 years old? Like,
yeah, they age them up, yeah. So
yeah, but like it's just everything about this is just not what you associate with that series.
yeah, like after 2 stints in rehab, 3 failed reality show pilots, she had pivoted to direct sales.
This is Bubbles.
Yep.
So you've got
Yeah, what a terrible fate.
Like, earmuffs to any of the younger listeners in the audience, but you've got a whore, you've got an addict, and you've got,
A bitch.
I guess, a lesbian because she doesn't like compulsory heterosexuality. Like, oh, Jesus.
So in other words,
These
no,
are
when
not Powerpuff Girls.
when you mentioned that,
Powerpuff
Joey, it's not a lesbian. It's probably more like a lug. You know what I'm talking about with lugs?
Nope.
That was a term I learned back in university days, lesbian until graduation. So that is, you basically you absorb the propaganda for
Last
4
time
years.
I saw you, you broke off our engagement and told me you'd pawned the ring for drugs.
Look at Bubbles'
Was
response.
that you? Oh man, these are.
Yeah, I feel
I'd like to thank the Academy.
damn, dude.
Well, if anything else, if this does happen, I would just watch it just for the laughs.
That is
really
Fat Girl level shit.
This is like it's kind of like, was it recently with Winnie the Pooh, like the whole like blood and honey thing is actually like it's actually a thing, like they're actually making that film where it's like we took this wonderful child story and someone's like, hey, it's open source now, yeah, we're gonna make a horror movie. And this is like the same level, right? Like we're just gonna go in a completely unrelated direction because we can.
I don't know. I think it seems appropriate because Eeyore is like Down syndrome or something, so he's always depressed. So they already have one foot in the door. So
Yeah,
What's
Eeyore was
crazy-
depressed, but he wasn't suicidal or anything. He was just like, figures.
I don't know. That sounds like someone who has his head in the noose already. So
But it's just great. Powerpuff Girls was a really fun show.
Yeah.
And
Extremely wholesome.
yeah,
It was, yeah.
yeah, there's no. I mean, I'm hoping that when they reboot with Craig McCracken, like, so Craig McCracken is married to Lauren Faust, who also does. She did the My Little Ponies Friendship is Magic show, which is also remarkably wholesome and good.
until
And-
season 5 and beyond.
All right, so you have some Starlight Glimmer hate. Got it.
No, not that. It's just they started like going down the route of friendship issues. You have to use friendship to solve more issues beyond domestic or interpersonal disputes.
I mean, I don't know about that. My son has watched like the entire show like 4 times, so I've seen them.
Oh.
And
I mean, I use friendship to kill my enemies. Isn't that part of friendship?
it's magic.
That's what Stalin did.
That's what Steven Universe does to a T.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
please.
reading, what was that book, Marx and Satan, and like actually like Stalin prided himself on like how much trust he could build in someone he was going to kill.
Well, there was an episode where Starlight Glimmer was a communist pony and tried to make everybody equal. So that was sort of a Stalin-esque moment. I don't know. I'm just trying to. That's kind of dark.
Wasn't there a movie or an episode where they made a Trump pony? Like, wasn't that a thing?
Not really.
No.
They might have done that like as a fan art thing, but there was a bad corporate guy in Las Pegasus, which I think obviously is a stand-in for Las Vegas, but it was kind of more generic bad company guy. But what's interesting is the show actually had very strong entrepreneurial themes because like it's weird to say this, but most of the main characters opened their own businesses and were trying to expand their businesses, and they went into like how to open a new location, hiring staff. It was like, this is really good to have on in a kid's cartoon. That's pretty good. Like one of the characters named Rarity owned a fashion boutique, and so she's opening throughout the course of the show for the 9 seasons it ran. She's opening locations in other stores. They actually show her interviewing managers to run the store that in a satellite location where she has to like ask questions about, hey, you're representing me. I need to make sure I'm picking the right person. It's like, wow, this is really good. This is how you have to do it when you're running a business. You have to think about those things. Like, you can't
Speaking
just.
of fashion, will Carly like hire other designers in it?
Oh, talking about Common America.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitchell was helping her at one point.
Yeah. True.
So that is a good question, though. Like, if she grows beyond herself, what's going to happen, right?
Let's see. She got some model, Sylvia modeling. So.
All right, and then maybe who's that? Marmot Maiden can help out with the production.
Let's see. I guess
Or
Ice Tosteron could be probably a model for the menswear.
There you go. And now this is a little bit different note, but I noticed all of a sudden the professor or the scientist who like wakes her up in issue 1.
Dr. Gracie.
Yeah, then you look at the most recent professor who's helping him out too.
I'm just gonna call him Dr. Light because that's what he looks like.
Yeah, he looks like Dr. Light. You know what I just realized? Dr. Gracie does kind of look like Dr. Wily.
And the robots are like robot masters from Mega Man, so
yeah, so I'm thinking we're gonna get a twist with like Dr. Gracie. He's gonna be like Darth Jar Jar, dude. He's gonna be the center of this whole thing. He's gonna surprise us all.
Well, my biggest surprise was still Father Blatty being a soul finder, so
yeah, I have to say that one. Well, I don't know.
Gotta retire somewhere.
Yeah. Although I do like the guy who ripped off the Soul Finder cover for Soul Finder 2 and like put Father Blatty on it, fighting the octopus.
I can't say more about Soul Finder or Black Ops because I haven't read any of their comics, but I will since I bought the Black Ops and Soul Finder bundle.
So you're gonna get those picked up, yeah.
Yeah, glad I did because those Soul Finder bundles like ran out like fast.
No, I know, man. But I was going to say, and of course, that was one topic we had brought up before, and maybe in fish on that one again. So as we've got, of course, Iconic that's been steadily building their business for some time, and yeah, seeing titles like that sell out so quickly is a great sign. And now we've got Rippaverse, in which Eric July was talking about it for some time, and now right after his launch, it really, really took off, which was impressive.
Yeah,
and I think he's the kind of guy he's in it to make his comics grow. Like he wants to turn out comics. So if that's the case, I mean, we could have potentially two new indie companies coming out.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait on his comic first before I get it,
because you don't know until you get it, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I don't know if it's as. I mean, I feel like he's pretty clear that are we worried like it's not going to get fulfilled? He's already done. It's already in the can. They're going to be shipping out.
Fulfilled 13 times over now.
Yes, pretty much.
Times over.
Well, no, as in it's already like done and printed and
yeah, he already has the book done.
Yeah, he may have to like order more printed. I have no idea like how many he ordered, but even still, even if that's the case, he probably already has a printer lined up. He's got everything else lined up probably, so he's probably fine there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I don't think there's any risk of it being an unfulfilled project.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking about it in that sense, but more in the sense of like, right, this one will come out. I'm sure like in not too far in the future, we'll see issue 2 coming out, right? That sort of thing. So, like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. I really am.
Yeah, I'm expecting some great things down the line.
Yep.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think having more entrepreneurial creators in the space is great. I mean, I've said this before. I've read enough comic books in my life, American mainstream standard superhero comics, to know that even when something is not really super well written, it's an average comic book, and that's perfectly fine. Like you don't have to make it doesn't have to be Watchmen. It doesn't have to be Dark Knight Returns. It doesn't have to be like Squadron Supreme to be a well-meaning comic. Sometimes a fun, good comic is just all you need. Like, I mean, some of those X-Men books in the '90s, most of them were kind of throwaways, and they were still just fun and good. Like, give me Wolverine fighting Omega Red. I mean, it's just a good time.
My only issue with this whole is just that the superhero well has been dry. It's dry. It's there's barely any like water in that well.
I mean, you say that, but then something like My Hero Academia, which is manga, is like one of the most popular IPs on the planet. It's selling. I mean, it's not Demon Slayer, but it sells merch. It's really big.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with just how the story is constructed, because it might be in the sense of like when we conventionally think of superheroes, right? It may be hard to break into that space because you're right, like that space has gotten a lot of things put into it. But there are still ways to say like, okay, like if someone has access to powers giving them an ability they didn't have before, there are still plenty of ways to write a story like that, right?
Yeah. True. It's just that, My Hero Academia put a new spin on the superhero genre. The same with One Punch Man.
Yep.
Was it more satirical for One Punch Man? It's like all the heroes aren't like doing it just for the sake of heroing. It's just popularity and fame.
Yeah, One Punch Man is definitely it's a combination of a superhero one, but it's also kind of a shonen satire with like the epically overpowered shonen hero in a manga book, who can just like when you go Super Saiyan to the umpteenth level and take someone out in one punch. It's mixing both, and it's very well done. Although the second season of the anime was really poorly animated. I think the studio quality was.
Yeah, they changed studios, I believe.
Yeah, I hate when they change the studio. Like, I think they didn't want it. Like maybe the studio had other obligations or whatever, but it definitely was a decline in the quality of the animation, and it was a problem.
You can always tell.
Well, they're gonna have to go back there because when season 3 comes on, because we're getting into it, man. We're getting into those big fights coming.
All right, I think I'm gonna have to head out now because I'm up late enough.
Yeah, I was about to say, Yakov, I thought you fell asleep,
I know.
man.
No, I'm sorry.
You've been fighting the good fight, keeping us up here. But yeah, it is, and also it's, I know, getting to the end of our usual time. So yeah, maybe it's a good time to jump off here. But man, it's been a great talk as always.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for letting me on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I guess that'll be a good time. We can all say good night and see y'all next week.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, wait.
What?
I want to say one more thing before everybody goes, because Fiona Wolf mentioned it way back toward the beginning of the show. Razor Fist put out a video on being the culture and creating the culture. If anyone listening hasn't seen that, go check out Razor Fist video on being the culture. It'll get you motivated and inspired and ready to go.
All right.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And now back to saying goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.